Wait for it. Okay. Good news, everybody. After much deliberation and contracts and all that paperwork, it is finally confirmed Barry is getting his own live-action Netflix series. It's a long time coming, and I know a lot of people are excited for this, okay? The problem is now I have to write a 10-episode season for Barry. So I don't know. If anybody has any ideas, let me know, because there's a deadline for all this. Okay, so we got 10 episodes for a season. I don't know if I want to make it a wacky comedy. You know, it's like an anthology or like a continuous storyline involving Barry. But we're gonna be doing this. Yeah. By the way, in case anybody is watching this thinking that that's actually happening, no, it's not actually happening. I know there's at least a couple people out there in internet land that are gonna be like, "What? Barry's actually getting his Netflix show? I'd watch that." What are you kidding? I would watch that. But seriously, yeah, no, it's not happening. Anyway, there is some Netflix-based news. This was a couple days ago, so I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but whatever. So this is a message that was actually released by Oda, quite recently, and that's actually really interesting because normally Oda does not directly address, the fan base. Usually that happens at Jump Festa every year in December. So outside of Jump Fest, it's usually pretty rare whenever Oda will take his time to directly write out a message and give it to the fan base, okay? So honestly, yeah, I have the letter right here. I think I'm just going to read it to you and just stop at various points and just break it down. Thanks to Artur, as always, because he's the one that translated this particular version I'm going to be reading here. So, the original release date for this, we did not get a date or anything yet, but it was 2023 is what it was announced. So sometime this year it was supposed to be released. And going by stuff in this letter, I mean, I personally feel it's still going to be released this year, but going by the way Oda words this, it could be pushed back further. So let's just get into it here. I've been working with Tomorrow Studios and Netflix for quite some time now. Even though they understand each of the characters, we obviously come from very different cultures. So when it comes to entertainment, we have different codes, skill sets, and aims. I'm going to pause right there, and I want to bring that up to everybody, that there is so much that goes into a show, whether it be on cable television, whatever that is, and or streaming services like Netflix. There are standards and practices and codes and things that you are allowed to say and things you aren't allowed to say, and this has nothing to do with the writing staff or the director or even Oda himself. This goes beyond that, okay? There are plenty of times when I was watching a show growing up. My favorite is Aqua Teen Hunger Force, because I love that show dearly. And there's a lot of episodes where they kind of poke fun by the fact that on anything involving Turner Broadcasting channels, anything by the Turner Group, so Cartoon Network and Adult Swim is part of Cartoon Network, they were not allowed to say Jesus. They're just not allowed to say Jesus Christ, so they made a whole episode called Gee Whiz. You know what I mean? It's they were poking fun at it. And you might hear that kind of stuff and you're just that's such a silly rule. And that's a very specific one, but there's a lot of other ones. I did the whole breakdown of 4Kids when 4Kids dubbed One Piece, and that very famous or perhaps infamous dub. And a lot of the decisions, yeah, some of them were made by the writing staff and stuff of 4Kids, we're just going to change this to this. But a lot of other things were way higher up on a tier that you can't really do much about. So I think that's important to understand. Now, of course, the further question with that is okay, if there are big issues involving, networks and codes and S&P and standards and practices and stuff like that, and it's going to encumber the work, then maybe you shouldn't even do the work. That's a different kind of argument to have, but I think it's important just to bring that up, that a lot of this stuff is kind of out of the hands of, the actual writing staff for Netflix, okay? Sometimes it could be frustrating for both sides, I can imagine. It felt like we're all trying to get to the same place, so how come we're not on the same wavelength? And I also have felt that before with things. It's just hey guys, come on, we all want the same thing. We want a live-action One Piece. Right? Yes. Okay. And we want it to be good, right? Yes. And we want everything to flow really well, right? Yes. And we want the comedy to be good. Yes. And we want the action to be good. Yes. And it's this isn't all clicking together though. And I can imagine how that's frustrating for a various number of reasons. Look, if you just simply took the manga of One Piece and you just took that as a frame by frame and incorporated that into television in a live action format, I don't really think it would work. I think that certain stories are they are connected to their medium in which they are originally produced, if that makes sense. One Piece began as a manga, and in that sense, there are certain things that work in a manga format that do not work in a live action format. Those are two fundamentally, you're going from a two-dimensional piece of artwork, you know, black and white, to live action with actors moving around in real time, you know, three-dimensional, you know what I mean? That is a big jump. So you gotta figure out a way to take the essence of what the manga really is, you know, the tone of the series, the themes, the characterization, all that stuff. You have to figure out a way, and some of it translates easier into television than others. And then, of course, as Oda brings up, there's a cultural boundary here where a sense of humor or a particular joke might work in Japanese, maybe not so much in English or in a broader kind of world, sort of, just like, because Oda brings up, you know, this is one of the chances to bring One Piece to the entire world, to a global audience, okay? Which, I mean, it kind of already has achieved a global audience. You know, it sells all over the world, of course, like there's translations of the manga in pretty much every language, but you know what I mean, like a big global audience, like it's a live action show on a major streaming platform. That's what Oda's referring to here, right? So there is a lot of stuff that you have to work out with this. There's a lot of moving parts. I don't think it's crazy to say, based on what Oda has said in this letter and also some other letters that he's written about this before, Oda's a little apprehensive about this. And can you really blame him? You know what I mean? This is, once again, not even talking about like the Netflix writing staff or the actors. I think the actors for this are going to be phenomenal, okay? The issue is just, this is Oda's, like, child. You know, this is Oda's child that he has worked on for well over a quarter of a century. He has dedicated his life to this. This is his magnum opus. And the idea that it's like, okay, we're going to make this into a live-action show. Oh, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out here. We really need to make sure everything is perfect down to the gnat's ass. All right? So Oda, though, is very hands-on with this. He's a busy guy. He's got a busy schedule with the manga and everything. But the way that he has written about this, he has dedicated much of his time to this, working with the staff, trying to get everything perfect, okay? Continuing on. There was even a time when I thought, is a foreign production even possible? You know what? Honestly, I feel like the fact that he realizes that and says that so openly is honestly a good sign. Because I don't know, man, like there's a lot of other times when you're reading about a live action version of an anime where, you know, the press for that will just be, we're so happy to make a Dragon Ball Evolution movie. It's gonna be fantastic and people are gonna enjoy this for years to come. I'm glad that Oda's being very forthright with this and is just, hey, listen, man, this has been kind of a headache trying to figure out how all the bits and pieces of this, how all the bricks are going to fall in place. It's been a bit of a headache. And I've even thought, like, can we even do this? Can we even make One Piece work in this live action format? So the fact that he realizes that and he's like working toward, like, I think it can work, but it's going to require a lot of work in the background, and, you know, he's involved in that very intimately. That's a good thing. Now, this might seem like it's coming out of nowhere, but we've been hard at work this entire time. No, I believe that. And now, each and every entity involved is working in sync. We're finally here. Okay? Considering my expected lifespan, I believe this is the last chance to bring One Piece to the entire world. All right, I'm going to pause on that one right there because I've been seeing a lot of articles taking that line and maybe not taking it out of context, but I've seen a lot of articles about that particular line, like kind of phrasing it like Oda feels like he's going to die soon and this is his last chance to bring One Piece to the world. And just like, I don't think he's being that dramatic with it, guys. Maybe calm down a bit, all right? I don't think, because he said, considering my expected lifespan, people are like, Oda-sensei, are you okay? Are you all right? It's just like, are you going to die soon? It's just like, I hope that's not the case. Like, I hope we don't find out that he has some kind of chronic illness in the background. Dude does not get that much sleep, so now I'm even a little bit worried about that. But I don't think that's what he was meaning with that. I don't think that was his intent to be like, as soon as I lay down my pen after writing One Piece, I'm done, guys. It's just like, I hope not, But I think it's just the idea that, hey, Oda's getting up there. He's reaching like his, I think he's almost 50, if not 50 already. He's getting pretty close. He's in his, I think his late 40s. So, he's probably encountering that moment. A lot of people would probably call it like maybe a midlife crisis, or maybe at the point where it's just maybe not a crisis, but like a, hey man, I'm gonna be 50 soon. You know what I mean? I mean, I just turned 30, and I had a thing where it's like, oh man, I'm 30. I can't imagine when I turn 50. Okay, and so if you were around that age, it could maybe be a moment. It's just like, hey man, things might start slowing down. My vision might start going away. Eventually I might not be able to move as well. That's just the way it is. That's just growing older. So I think maybe what Oda is referring to, with all the time and effort and energy it took into getting from the planning stages of this live action to where we're at right now, where it said, 2023 was the expected release. All the work that went into that, plus all the work he's got to do on the manga, and plus everything else. Dude has a wife. Dude has children. You know what I mean? He has like a life going on in the background of all this, right? So all of that being said, I think he's just simply saying that this is it. This is it. If this works out, fantastic. Live action One Piece, we made it work. We tried our best. Oda tried his best. All the staff tried their best. The actors tried their best. We went forward the best possible way. We did all the planning. If I didn't think something was right, we stopped and we worked on it, and we worked on it until we got to a place where it could happen, and we're going to put it out there. And if it works, if it's well accepted, we can all breathe a sigh of relief and like, yes, good live action One Piece series. Break the mold when it comes to really shitty live action anime series, right? If we could break the mold with that, that'd be phenomenal. But I think what he's saying is, if this doesn't work out, if it's not well received, if it doesn't get a season 2, that's it. I don't think Oda's I'm not gonna, it's like a couple years from now, it's like, okay, well, that live action One Piece didn't work out, Oda Sensei, but how about we bring you this one on Hulu? I think Oda's gonna, nope, not touching that. We tried it, and it still wasn't well received, so you know what? I'm not doing it again. At least that's the way I personally am interpreting this, okay? I could be wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at this, okay? If we're going to do it, I wanted to be able to supervise things while I'm still active. That's why I agreed to the live action adaptation back in 2016. That's another thing to keep in mind. 2016, okay? So that is 7 years ago. 7 years ago. I'm assuming that's the moment when whoever the powers that be at Netflix, or, whatever, Oda's bosses at Shueisha or whoever, approached him to get the green light, to get his approval on, would you be interested in pursuing this live action One Piece Netflix show that happened 7 years ago at the very beginning of this? And dude, can you imagine that, by the way? Can you imagine being Oda, the man that created all of this, most of the nerdy stuff that's in the background of my room right now, okay? Can you imagine being the man himself, and somebody coming to you, some executive or somebody coming to you and being like, we want to bring One Piece to Netflix. We want to make a live action. Dude, you'd be, I can't even imagine. Oda would, dude, if I was him, I would like go home and pour a big glass of whiskey and just be like, oh, should we embark down this road? Just like, yeah, I don't know how his thought process went, but he was like, you know what? If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, damn it. All right. So that's that. All right. Since then, Netflix has committed enormous resources to the production. It was announced that the show will launch in 2023, but they've promised that they won't launch until I am satisfied. That's another really big one. That's another really, really big one, okay? I feel like Oda had a lot of stipulations with this. I feel like Oda, he didn't just blindly agree to this. I feel like he just didn't be like, oh, live action One Piece, yeah, sure, sign me up. No, I feel like there were so many caveats and stipulations to this. Like, I'm not like Oda, is the one that's like, I approve everything here. I go through all of it. I want to be involved. I want to be like, I get to see the scripts. I get to see the casting. I get to see the special effects. I get to see the whole plan. I want to have a thumb on all of this, okay? And he might have also stipulated, like, it's like, in order for this to work, we're going to need a big budget to really make it work. I don't want to see the Going Merry as just a pile of sticks or a mass of CGI floating in the ocean. We're building a Merry. It's like, okay, shit, we'll build a Merry. It's like, okay, in order to make this work, you got to look right. I think Oda also understands you can't translate every single thing from this fictional world into real life on a grandiose scale. And this is just season 1, where we're getting the Baratier and Arlong Park and all that craziness. Can you imagine getting to something like the Palace of Alubarna or Skypiea? That is still something that, like, dude, if season 1 does amazing, go to season 2. Season 2 is amazing. I would assume season 2 would end at Alabasta. Season 3, Skypiea. That's kind of where you hit a wall where it's like, I am not sure how the hell they would do that. Okay? But, in order to do it, I mean, like, listen, you could do it. You could do Skypiea. You would need a budget the size of like Avengers Endgame or something, right? Like, if you had a budget of that scale, like if you had a movie like that, or like an Avatar, or like Endgame, or any MCU big budget Hollywood film, you could make like Skypiea look amazing. So it's definitely workable, but like, is that actually going to happen? Well, that's far, 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 far flung in maybe a hypothetical future that might never even occur. So we'll not talk about that right now. But basically, it's like, we are not going to launch until I am satisfied. Oda is personally satisfied, okay? Okay, you know what? I don't want to... This is just my personal opinion on this, so I got to say it. Okay. So... when he says that, they've promised they won't launch until I am satisfied. Okay. Well, in that case, what if Oda ever reaches a point where, here's the final product, okay, and they have everything, they have all the actors, and they have all the boats, and they have all the sets, and they filmed, I mean, I'm assuming they filmed everything. I'm assuming it's in, like, the editing stages, maybe pickups, going back for reshoots or something right now. I don't know what stage it's at right now, as I'm filming this on May 6th. But anyway, what if it all comes together, it's all a show, and Oda looks at it, and he's just still not satisfied. And he's just like, you know what? It's just not working out. And it's just like, what do you do at that point? Would Netflix be willing to just keep throwing money at it until Oda's satisfied? I mean, I would, that would be cool if they did. But it's just like, there's going to be, once again, powers that be. There's things above this, and there's like a budget that's just like, yeah, Oda wants us to go back and redo the whole Baratier arc because he doesn't think it works. And just like, that's going to cost too much money. We're not doing that. Like, that could be something like that. I don't know how this all works out. But, if that just on face value, that'd be great. Yeah, if it's like only when Oda is satisfied with it is when it gets released. The entire cast and crew, spanning various countries, are brimming with love for One Piece. I definitely believe that. I've seen like little short videos and like TikToks and stuff with the actors, like Inaki and Emily and Makenyu and everybody like hanging out and stuff, and they definitely seem to have a chemistry together. So that's great. Like I said, I did a video on the actors when they were revealed, Inaki, Makenyu, Emily, Jacob, and Taz as the 5 main Straw Hats, and they're all phenomenal. I think they're gonna do great. I don't think it's gonna be an issue with acting in the slightest here. The writing, I think, is going to be great. It's just the inherent translation from, like I said, manga medium to live action medium, from, by the way, not just not just comics in general, but manga, a specific form of comic that exists in Japan, in that culture, in that language, bringing that to a global stage. All right, that's where the tricky parts are going to come into, and Oda says as much in this letter. But I have no doubt that the staff is in love with this story, that the actors are all going to be phenomenal in their roles. Actually, I was looking at the staff again. The guy they got to play, I mean, like, I think the Straw Hats are great, but the guy they got to play Zeph, Craig Fairbrass, look at this dude. This dude is like Zeph. This is the perfect cast for Zeph right here. Slap a mustache and a chef's hat on this guy. That is Zeph. 100%. So like the casting of this is incredible. All right, like yeah, the guy they got, the guy they got to play Shanks is great. You know, like yeah, Stephen Ward is Mihawk. Like I think the acting and the cast is gonna do great. I don't think there's gonna be an issue there, but. Yeah, they're burning with passion, and I've reminded everyone involved that it should be fun. Perfect, great. We're in the final process right now. As of finishing all 8 episodes, we'll be setting sail very soon. And then there's a nice little drawing down there of all the Straw Hats. Okay, so that's Oda's message. Now, the next thing in this letter, I think out of this entire letter, there's 3 points that everybody kind of picked out as like the most relevant. The first one is when Oda said, you know, I'm at a phase of my life where, you know, I have to be the most active in order to do this before I get too old. That's the first one. And the second point was, you know, this will not launch until I am personally satisfied. Oda says it. So that's number 2. And the last big one is that last line that says, we're now preparing all 8 episodes. Because I was under the impression, and I think it was knowledge for a while there was actually going to be 10 episodes, not 8. So some people are like, okay, well, what's up with that? Is this going to be some Game of Thrones crap? You know what I mean? Is it going to be some Game of Thrones season 8 crap here? Like, what's going on here? Okay, here's my opinion on this, all right? So first of all, let's go through the major plot beats and story arcs of the East Blue saga, okay? First major plot beat, first major arc, Romance Dawn. Okay, you got Romance Dawn. I'm including both the flashback with Shanks and I'm including the Goat Island arc that has Alvida and Kobe and then Luffy defeats Alvida. You know, like I'm including that in Romance Dawn. All right, that's the first arc. Then you got Shellstown. All right, Shellstown. Number 2, Zoro's appearance fighting against Morgan. After that, you got Orangetown. All right, with Nami and Buggy. After that, you got Syrup Village with Usopp and Kuro and Kaya and everybody. Then after that, you got Baratier. 5, Zeph, Don Krieg, Sanji. 6, Mihawk as well. 6, you got Arlong Park, which is kind of the big finale to East Blue, where you got Arlong, Nami's backstory, Genzo, Nojiko, the story of Bellemere, all that stuff going on. Introduction of the fishmen into the One Piece world, all right? So that's 6. And then finally, 7, you got Logtown, all right, which is the epilogue, so to speak, for the East Blue and the prologue for the beginning of the Grand Line journey, okay? So those are 7 major plot beats that you got in East Blue. Now, there's other stuff in there as well. A lot of people are probably going to be like, what about Gaimon? We want Gaimon, damn it. All right, look, honestly, I'll tell you what, straight up about Gaimon, okay? Gaimon's little mini chapter, little mini arc, it was 1 chapter in the manga. It was 1 chapter. It was 1 episode of the anime. It was 1 22-minute episode of the anime, and I think even in that episode, they had to extend certain parts of it to get it to the 22 minutes. If they really, really wanted to include Gaimon's little mini arc, they could do it in probably like 10 minutes. Like, it wouldn't be hard. All right, you could do that in like a 10-minute portion. Because what is Gaimon's story? Gaimon's story is they land on his island of rare animals. He's stuck in a treasure chest. He has the sad story where he was a pirate about to find the treasure. He fell off the cliff, stuck in a treasure chest. He can't get back up the cliff because he's stuck. And so Luffy goes up to get the treasure for him. They find out the treasure chests are empty. Gaimon cries because he's like, I've been stuck here for like 20 years and I could not find the treasure and it was empty the whole time. But then at the end, he realizes that the real treasure of the island is actually the animals. There you go. That's Gaimon's story. You could blitz through that in 10 minutes. Not even blitz through it. You could concisely tell that story within 10 to 15 minutes. It would not be hard. That is if they wanted to include it, which, like I said, I don't really think it's necessary, okay? Now, going from 10 episodes to 8 episodes, a lot of people are going to feel this is going to be rushed. I just want to say one thing. This is a fine line, okay? This is a fine line with fiction. Sometimes there's too much stuff. And then you get filler, and then it gets boring, and then it gets dragged out. But if you shorten it too much, it's it's poorly paced, and everything's rushed, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? There's crazy stuff happening everywhere. This is happening too quickly, So there's got to be a happy medium. There has to be a happy medium where the pacing is good, and concise and quick, but not too fast. It gives you moments to really kind of soak in the action and the drama and the moments and everything. I was going to say romance, not romance in the sense of like romance, but like romance dawn, romance for adventure. You want to feel that, right? So you got to find a moment here. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were originally set for 10 episodes and they were working through the scripts and everything. And what if Oda felt like this is just not flowing fast enough? This is just not moving at a certain pace, you know? And so they dropped it down to 8 to keep it more concise, okay? Because if that was the case, I think we've all watched shows before where we're watching a show and it's like, this is just not flowing fast enough. There's way too much filler. The pace is just too dragged out. I think we've all seen movies before, especially, where you watch a movie and you're walking out of the theater and you could be like, you could have probably cut that down by 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and it would still have been fine. You know what I mean? Like, I think we all encountered movies and shows like that, okay? The problem is when you cut out too much and then the pacing gets screwed over, okay? So I'll tell you what, with those 7 major plot beats that I'm talking about here, with 8 episodes to work with, I think it could happen. I think it could work. Now, with the one arc that should have 2 episodes, I think that's pretty clear. That needs to be Arlong Park. That needs to be Arlong Park. They do Arlong Park in 2 episodes. I think they can work the other arcs in 1 episode each, provided the episodes are going to be an hour. And this is Netflix, so it's not going to be like, 40 minutes with commercials. It's going to probably be pretty close to an hour. Some episodes might even be over an hour. You know what I mean? They might do some of that stuff. It was like I remember watching some of the later episodes of like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul where they would just extend it to like, oh yeah, this episode of Better Call Saul is going to be an hour and 10 minutes because it has to be. You know what I mean? So I would rather go with that rather than adding on new episodes that like are not like, if they can do it in 8 episodes with like roughly an hour long, maybe a little less than an hour, a little more than an hour, depending on the episode, I think you can make it work. Once again, you got to keep in mind, this is live action. The pace is going to be different from reading it panel by panel in the manga or based off of the anime. And even the anime has to use filler sometimes to make sure everything is like, drawn out to the appropriate episode length. Okay? In the anime, how many times, not just in One Piece, but in anime in general, how many times do you have a character fighting an enemy? In the manga, it's like he runs up and punches him and then punches him a second time and then knocks him down and the fight's over. In the anime, they're like, all right, we got to drag that out a little bit. So we're going to have him punch the first time, and then the enemy fights back, and they jump around the battlefield a little bit. That wasn't in the manga, but whatever. And then the second punch, and he goes down, and then he has a flashback of his life really quick that we already knew about, and then he gets back up, and then the third punch. It's like, yeah, we could stretch that out by an extra 10, 15 minutes using that. We want to end the episode on the final clash here, something that happened in a matter of 3 or 4 pages in the manga could be stretched out to an entire episode in the anime. We've all seen that happen before, right? So, like I said, I think if we do that, we'll do episodes 1 through 5, so like episode 1's Romance Dawn, episode 2 is Shellstown, episode 3 is Orangetown, episode 4 is Syrup Village. I mean, like, when you think about Syrup Village, like Usopp's story with Kuro and Kaya, like, if you really boil that down to just like, okay, they show up, they are introduced to Usopp, they go out to dinner with him really quick, they talk about his life and stuff, we get introduced to Kaya, Kuro's a duplicitous asshole, he's planning on invading the island with pirates, Luffy, Zoro, and Nami go and Usopp as well, go and stop him. Like, if you had an hour and 10 minute long episode, I think you could probably make that work. It's not a really crazy long story with that. Baratier, you might be cutting it a little bit. Like, if there was any episode that would be longer than an hour, I feel like Baratier would have to be. But there you go with that. You have Baratier. And then if you had Arlong Park divvied up into 2 episodes, like episodes 6 and 7 were Arlong Park, and then episode 8, the finale, you could even do a thing where we're assuming every episode will be its own standalone thing. It might not be. It might be a thing where, like, what if Arlong Park is like an episode and a half? Okay, and then they get to Logtown and stuff. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to divvy it up, but I'm going to take Oda at his word when he says that. He's like, hey, it's not launching till I'm satisfied. I'm very involved in the process, and we'll see where this goes. All we have right now is faith in the production and the writers and the directors and Oda himself. That's all we can really do. And at the end of the day, if it airs and it's not received well, then that's it. At least, you know, they gave it a try. Oda tried his best here. That's what I'm getting from this letter. And it's like, okay, we tried it. It didn't work out, and there won't be a season 2. But I would love there so much to be a season 2. I really want this to succeed. I really do. Not just because I talk about One Piece, but just because I want to see a good live-action anime. It's almost like, you know, you might be thinking, like, who cares? Anime doesn't need to be live action. It never needed to be. Like, I understand that viewpoint, but it's also just a sense of, like, okay, this has been attempted so many times. I want it to succeed well at least once. And there's other really good live actions. Like, I like the first live action Death Notes, and Rurouni Kenshin. The live action Rurouni Kenshin was good. But that was a movie. This is a show. I would love there to be, like, oh my god, they did it. They actually did it. They caught lightning in a bottle, and they actually did it. Because you know what that would prove? That would prove that live-action anime, it can work, but the author and everybody have to be working in sync, working together, and have to be passionate about this project, and have to understand it's not about budgets and being like, oh, well, we don't care about this, we're going to cut this out. No, if it's all about communication and working together to make this work, and they actually manage to make it work, it'd be like, yes, it is feasible, and there's hope for the future. Yes. Okay, well, anyway, that's my video. Hope you all enjoyed. Yeah, of course, I will be here when it eventually does launch. We will probably get a date whenever Oda is satisfied and we finally get a date like 2023 or 2024 or whenever it is released. And yeah, I don't know if it'll be really, if it's on Netflix, it'll probably be released in like the whole thing at once, you know, so you have to just binge watch it. So I don't know how I would review that. I don't know if I would watch, like, just take a day and just watch the whole thing and just binge the whole damn season in one day. Could do that. If it's only 8 episodes with only an hour each, I could easily do that in a day. And then the following day, I do my video where I address everything. Or if I do it by episode, actually, that's a good one for you guys to let me know. How would you prefer I tackle this? Would you prefer I watch one episode and then talk about the episode without watching anything else? So just, I watched the Romance Dawn episode, or the first episode. I believe the first episode is confirmed. It will be called Romance Dawn, which makes sense. So, like, watch that episode and then talk about it, and then watch episode 2 and then talk about it. Or would you want me to watch all of the episodes and then maybe go through an episode-by-episode format with me knowing what happens next? You know, like, hey, guys, we're going to talk about Romance Dawn, but I've already seen the whole season, so I know what happens next, so this connects back to that. Or would you prefer, like, I probably wouldn't do it in the big format, like a giant video for the whole season. That'd be long. That'd be a huge-ass video. So I guess those are my two options, you know, episode by episode, or I watch the whole season and then do it from the perspective of, like, I know what happens at the end. Let me know about that. Let me know how you would feel about that. This will be Tekking and Barry signing out. Kaisuko Oni Orewanar. Let's do it.